Owning a home has long been a staple of the American dream. And at the center of that are two big companies, Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac. Sound familiar? Maybe you haven't thought that much about them since the 2008 financial crisis.
The federal government is stepping into it to stabilize Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac.
The two companies almost collapsed under the weight of an unprecedented housing bust, but then the government stepped in to bail them out. Now, the Trump administration has asked for plans to reshape Fannie and Freddie. But a housing finance overhaul could mean privatizing or shrinking the two companies. A process that some believe could mean mortgages will become more expensive and less affordable for millions of Americans. That includes the most popular home loan in the US, the 30-year fixed-rate mortgage. Homeowners like this mortgage because of the low monthly payments and the interest rate that doesn't fluctuate. We'll explain, but first you have to understand how Fannie and Freddie fit into the US housing system. First, homeowners borrow money from banks or other lenders. Then, Fannie and Freddie buy these mortgages and package them into securities. Then they sell those securities to investors. Investors buy them because they're considered safe, because Fannie and Freddie take on much of the risk. Lenders and banks benefit too. Since the government takes on much of the default risk, lenders can make more loans to more people. Together, Fannie and Freddie now back about half of new US mortgages. So, why do some want to change the two companies? Some in Washington want to shrink or even get rid of Fannie and Freddie. And President Trump himself has indicated that he wants to roll back the government's involvement in the two companies, which have been under government control since the financial crisis. But a housing finance overhaul could mean privatizing or shrinking the two companies. Those looking to shrink Fannie and Freddie argue that the government shouldn't be involved in the housing market to the extent it is now. They say that the private sector, not the government, should be filling this role. But those who support Fannie and Freddie say that homeownership is a path to prosperity for the middle class, and that the government has a responsibility to keep housing affordable. But now some are wondering, what would the US housing market look like without Fannie and Freddie? Well, to start with, many non-bank lenders might find it harder to operate. Unlike banks, these firms don't have deposits, which means it will be more expensive for them to lend money if Fannie and Freddie go away. These so-called non-bank lenders make up about half of new US mortgages today, and they're often the only path that first-time borrowers or middle-income families have for getting a mortgage. That's because in the last decade, many banks have focused largely on wealthy borrowers when making mortgages, and the non-banks have moved in to fill the space they left. Beyond that, no one's really sure what the market would look like without Fannie and Freddie. But let's consider other countries, which don't operate their housing markets like the US does. In many countries, long-term fixed-rate home loans, including the 30-year fixed-rate mortgage, aren't largely available. Instead, mortgage rates reset depending on the market. And even a 1-point increase in your mortgage's interest rate can add hundreds of dollars to your monthly payment. We can also look at the US before Fannie was created in 1938. Back then, borrowers had to come up with much larger down payments, often 50% or more. Mortgages also tended to last for just 5 or 10 years, with a big balloon payment that came due at the end. So, future mortgages could look like this, or not at all. Much of it depends on how the government plans to reshape Fannie and Freddie. But reshaping them won't be easy. People like the benefits they create, including the 30-year fixed-rate mortgage. And right now, there isn't much agreement on either side of the aisle on how to get rid of the government's involvement in housing, at least not without completely overhauling the way the housing system works. So, for now, Fannie and Freddie's future is still up in the air.